This was an approximately 2-hour journey via the Mai Mahiu Road.
Turn into Lodge Corner absolutely together, and as they head up towards the line, they come out of the corner in the same order as well. But as they come past the pits now then, can Ross Stoner make a move to the inside of Old Hall Corner? It's not for the want of trying he's not got past Matt Flowers, nor that Gareth Claydon hasn't got past Ross Stoner. Great fight between the three of them. Run wide, over the curb, and there is a time penalty of 10 seconds, according to the lighting gantry on the start line, being given to Gordon McMillan. Now, we'll wait confirmation as to why. I fear it's going to be for track limits, but a time penalty of 10 seconds to car number 20 as Ross Stoner moves himself up past Matt Flowers, and now Gareth Claydon tries to buy into this as well. Look, there's half a gap on the inside, a big gap now, big hip and shoulder, and that forces Matt Flowers off the road. Is he going to be able to get back on in his new lightweight model with the front balance ripped off the car? The grass here is so wet and boggy, he's got to try and hook first gear, but Gareth Claydon might have a case to answer there. That was robust at best. There was a bit of a gap, but he kind of slid through the corner, clattered into the side of Matt Flowers, and Matt Flowers' car, hopefully, is going to be able to rejoin. Otherwise, Flowers will take root in the grass on the outside of Island Bend, and there he is, he's absolutely stuck. So, yes. Flowers and grass together, but Matt Flowers on the edge of the road, absolutely furious, and understandably so, because slams the door shut. That was not his fault. He was, as you saw, given a decidedly severe lead, and he's out of the race as a consequence. It shuffles the order, and so also will this penalty for Gordon McMillan shuffle the order. So he's got his penalty, as I say, presumably for track limits. And so on the road, with now 4.5 minutes to go, it's going to be a rather different order from how the results are going to dictate. But the one constant is this rather metronomic number 11 car in the lead of Joe Doble. He's already gone through. In second place is Conor Grady, and third on the road is Gordon McMillan. Now, fourth on the road, Ross Stoner. Fifth on the road is Gareth Claydon, and sixth is Mike Doble. But you put the penalty of 10 seconds onto Gordon McMillan, and he's going to fall down to 8th place. That's Conor Grady coming down through Cascades. 4 more minutes of the race remain then as the race leaders accelerate along Lakeside Straight once more. We're on lap number 6. Matt Flowers' car still presumably stuck on the edge of the circuit. Hopefully everybody's going to respond to the yellow flags and therefore reduce their pace accordingly. Nice little battle developing a bit further back here, as you can see. Langham in the traffic and up through Island Bend. The cars do slide, in fairness to Gareth Claydon from the lap ago, but there is Alex Reed, number 148, and it's Max Noble behind him, who is therefore up ahead of Rod Langham. So you've had a change for 10th place on the road. 23, Max Noble has gained a spot, and he has his sights on doing the same again, doesn't he, before the end of the race to Alex Reed as they wriggle their way through Britain's. 3 more laps to run. BMWs, of course, popular race cars, a number of championships, but this one being a really good, competitive and low-cost way of coming into the series. The BMW 3 Series Compact, and a red flag is being shown in the background. Race stop. I was going to say, these cars, of course, not as young as they were, so they're in harder supply, but with a red flag shown, presumably because of Matt Flower's car in a dangerous place over on the outside of Island Bend, but the red flag shown race stop, and with just under 3 minutes to go, I can't see that being restarted. That would be a result. So we will await confirmation, but red flag, race stop, and the result will be confirmed, presumably, with the dominant race leader, Joe Doble, as a winner, and Conor Grady second, but then it gets a bit more messy with this penalty to be applied to Gordon McMillan. Shame that the red flag had to be shown, really, because that was a lively race. The good news is there's another one for the BMWs to come a little bit later on in the day. So just to remind you, we've got one more race to come before the lunch break. The huge grid of modified Fords will take to the circuit next, and then there'll be the lunch break. Then we'll do the 3 categories once more, and then the Fun Cup endurance race to round out the afternoon. So that is what we have next to look forward to. But the winning drivers making their way in towards Parc Fermé, and grumpy drivers making their way back to their cars. Matt Flowers then to go and try and get the mud off the car and have a look at the lack of front. That car might look somewhat different when we see it again. You can see why, though. It was felt perhaps by race control that the race needed to be interrupted. A safety car would have taken them to the end, so there was no real point. But if anybody else had have gone off, they'd have found that car. And a very disappointed Matt Flowers. As we saw, Gareth Claydon was the man that made that big dive on the inside. Contact between the two. Matt Flowers the one that came off worst. So, might be a little bit of clearing up to be done, but the recovery crew is at the end of the pit lane ready to be released. Modified Fords next. Oulton Park a little less wet than it was for the British GT Easter Monday races, but more rain forecast, sadly, and it seems to be remarkably wet in the northwest these last couple of weeks. So, as you saw from Matt Flowers' escapade, get onto that grass. It's not only very slippery, but it's also very boggy, and that's why he couldn't get the traction to come off the other end. Let's have a look at the provisional race result then, based on who got to the line, and penalties taken into account as well. Joe Doble, race winner from Conor Grady and Ross Stoner, third. Gareth Claydon, possibly the question mark over his pointy elbows, fourth. Mike Doble, fifth, and Richard Sutherland, sixth, ahead of Peter Smith. The penalised Gordon McMillan, third on the road, drops to eighth, ahead of Alex Reid. Rod Langham, 10th, because although Max Noble was ahead, he wasn't ahead at the end of the lap the result is taken from. 12th, Adam Wright, Mark Grady, 13th, and Xavier Ross in 14th place. Alistair Smith, 15th, ahead of Thor Van Asten, up from his 10-second delayed start. Barney Lower next, then Daniel Mountford from Alex Corkwell and Tim Seaford, 20th, with Matt Flowers, the driver not running at the time of the red flag, therefore taken out of the results. So over in the distance at Shell Oil's corner, the officials swiftly trying to get Matt Flowers' car, and have done so, off the grass. Probably can be driven back from there, but it looks a bit dog-eared. The driver's briefing this morning talked about people taking home their cars in as good a state as they brought them. Matt won't, but not through any fault of his own. Is the local car wash open, I wonder, down the road? So you can dash down the road and make it less muddy. Mud swept off the circuit, and Matt can now fire it up and bring the car round to the pit lane, but he's got a lot of work to do in the second race because he's going to be at the back of the grid, and more mud drops from the car as he sets off. Trying to put the car offline so that any mud that does drop from it won't go onto the racing line, and Matt Flowers will bring the car back, possibly go and have a word with Gareth Claydon to say what the. You can see the dent in the door. I think the car's okay, it's just got a slightly crinkled door on that left-hand side. Recovery vehicle in pursuit. Marshall's on the grid getting ready for modified Fords, which will be our next action on track for this first BRSCC event of the season, and with a little bit of rain forecast in about 35 minutes time, might well be that the drivers in the second round of races have a rather damp track to contend with. We'll turn our attention in a moment to the modified Ford series, which is sort of having a second lease of life in a way. Go back into the 1990s, there was the Fast Ford Championship. That faded away, but has come back with this great assortment of cars, and we'll have a huge field of them, something like 29, taking to the circuit in a few minutes' time. Prior to that, let us go back into the fresh air. Scott Woodwis has found our winning BMW drivers. Scott.
Well, we never like to see things end under a red flag, but I think regardless of how he took it, it's a congratulations for our first winning Compact Cup for Joe Doble, another winner for the Doble dynasty in BMW Compact Cup. From pole, fastest lap and led every single race. How's that feel?
No, that's the perfect race apart from the red flag. I managed to get the gap at the start, pull that gap and then just try and maintain it for the last quarter of the race. But no, it's a good start to the season.
It seems like you've been taking a bit of tuition from your dad and your brother who's in touring cars. Have they been giving you some tips over the winter just to get a bit faster, or have you found some pace yourself?
No, I think doing a lot of sim racing's helped me build my own, my own pace, and obviously it helps to have a touring car driver as your coach. But it's all come together. I mean, cars look brilliant, feel brilliant, and it's going well.
You got the first one off your back. Now there's a difficult second album. You've got to kind of try and do it again later on this afternoon. Are you confident? Anything to tweak on the car, or you think it's in the sweet spot?
No, I think it's in the sweet spot at the moment. All I can do is try and do the same again.
So, first win. First of many, hopefully. Well done. Congratulations. Right, let's bring over Conor Grady in second place. Because we have to say provisionally, because of course it's down to the results and stuff. But anyway, second place for Conor Grady. Conor, well, that's not bad. First time out in Compact Cup and a first podium.
Yeah, it was getting used to the car. Every time we're going out, I'm getting better. So hopefully we'll be all right getting on to start the season, really.
So what brought you to Compact Cup? Because you've done quite a few things. You've been a former Fiesta Junior briefly, Ginettas, you've done Clio's, quite a few things. What was it that brought you to Compact Cup?
Mikey Doble told me I should have a go, and then me and my dad said, he wanted to have a go, so I thought I'd have a go with him. So it's been getting on all the time. Hopefully he's been getting better, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's a recommendation from Mikey, because you two went wheel to wheel in Ginettas a couple of years ago as well.
Yeah, me and Mikey used to be teammates, so that's why he told me to come and have a go, so I did.
Enjoyed it so far?
Yeah, really did. Getting on the fun car to drive, to be fair. Quite hard to drive, but just getting used to it.
Yeah, great stuff. Well done on the podium. Fingers crossed for race 2. We'll see you later on. And third place, I'm going to double check. Pardon me. I think last time I saw it was Ross Stoner. Give me a second. I should really have this primed up, being more professional, but screenshots. It was, yes, Ross Stoner. Ross is bringing you in. So Ross, obviously third, because obviously we've got to double check the results, but given that Matt wasn't running, so you were the next one behind him in the order on the results, so you're third on that one. Good result for you.
Yeah, I mean, my dad, who's over there, that's just wandered off. All right, Dad? No, he's taking no notice. My mechanic, Carl, did a mega job. We were, going pretty well in testing yesterday, and then the rain came and I basically turned into a wet lettuce in qualifying. But my daughter's watching, who's 11, Daisy Stoner. She said I've got to give her a mention. So there you go, Daisy Duda. At least we've got, I think, a cap and a trophy to take back, because that's the Masters and the third place, I think. So had worse days. Yeah.
So race 2 now. Any thoughts starting from the second row?
Well, if it rains, I'll probably be close to dead last. So we'll just take one result today, to be honest.
Have some confidence in yourself.
No, not in the rain. I got too old. I've lost my bottle. But in the dry, I think I'm still just as good, and I was pleased with the start. Obviously, I've got to mention my wife, hey Debs. So they're at home watching, and if they can do a sun dance, that'd be mega.
Well done. Congratulations. We'll see you for race number 2 in that stuff. Right, time for our next race as the rain starts to fall. So whilst David stays nice and dry in the commentary box, I'm going to come and join him. Next race coming up is for the modified Fords. Great, very grid. Let's change back to David for the grid as I try and find a bit of shelter and a towel at this rate. Back to you, David.
Scott, thank you. Yes, perhaps the weather gods are cynics after all, because of all the cars you could put a wet track in front of. These are the least ideal. Big, powerful turbocharged engines in many cases, or big, brutal V8 engines in others. That said, you've got some rather handier front-wheel drive cars to take on the big bangers. So this is going to be an enthralling race. The Modified Ford Series, race 1 of 2. The cars were in action at the end of last year with huge grids. They started at Silverstone with Dave Cockell's Ford Escort Cosworth taking 2 wins. And it is local man Piers Grange who is going to be on pole position in the silver Ford Escort Mark II with Jim Hutchison's Mark I lining up with him at the front. Josh Payton on the second row of the grid, and Tom Ovenden, rallycrosser, starting next. So let's look at that grid then. Piers Grange and Jim Hutchison row 1. It's a rolling start, by the way, ahead of Josh Payton and Tom Ovenden. David Matthias, a Leek-based driver, very experienced campaigner with Paul Neville for company. Then you've got Todd Gardner and Alex Bohm starting on the 4th row of the grid. Row 5 is where you find Mike Manning, another former rallycrosser with the Sierra Cosworth, and it is Oliver Bullion alongside him. Then Robert Lewis and Sam Shimwell lining up ahead of James Allen and Mike Furley. Chris Baker and Jay Hinton will come next, ahead of Alan Breck and Darren Owen. Deadly Daz, former Bangor racer and classic hot rod racer. Scott Matthias is ahead of Matt McCarthy. Then it's Luke Bennett and Piers Warwick, with Dave Barrett and Nick Head on the 12th row of the grid. The 13th row, Malcolm Wise, who seems to have been around racing Fords almost since the Model T. He's been such a stalwart racer. Colin Claxton, who's another Oulton Park Northwest Sports Saloon regular, 26th on the grid, ahead of Kevin Hadfield and then Sean Hadfield. Wayne Crabtree has a question mark over his very pretty Gulf Limited Mark 1 Escort because that had problems in qualifying and retired before the end of the session, but as long as it's there, it should be a car to watch. Making some progress. 1 or 2, as you can see, fabulous retro liveries, including not only Zack Speed Castrol but also Jägermeister colours on a couple of cars, including the Eurocar V8 that runs for Luke Bennett and Alan Breck's Ford Capri V8. Martini colours, more familiar with rally Fords than racing Fords, but and another Zack Speed livery you can see. And the Gulf Escort of Wayne Crabtree has made it out, which is good news. It will start at the back of the grid behind Sean Hadfield's Ford Puma. Escorts, Fiestas, Capris, Cosworth Sierras. There's a Sapphire Cosworth I've spotted, plus the Ford-shaped Eurocar V8. There are 1 or 2 Fiestas in the mix as well. And Josh Payton deserves a word for his much modified Mark II Cortina, which is going to be 3rd on the grid. So cars slotting into place. Down on the grid, the Sapphire Cosworth I was talking about is the car of David Matthias that is on the 3rd row. A little bit further back you'll find Mike Manning's Sierra running in the pseudo Eggenberger colours of 1987's World Touring Car Championship, 1988's European, and occasional British races, the Texaco colours in other words, but we'll no doubt come to that car in the course of the race. Mike Manning, with his rallycross experience, will be a man to watch in these greasy conditions, I think, but find something that's not got too much horsepower and is nimble and might make progress during the course of the race. That will be a potential winner, because for the moment the rain is still falling and you can see wipers on the Escort Mark II and the Escort Mark I at the front of the grid. Piers Grange in the silver Escort, behind the pace car in the British Racing green and gold colours is Jim Hutchison. The 2nd row, the red Cortina, hidden for the moment, is Josh Payton, and then another driver with off-road experience, Tom Ovenden, in the family's familiar red and yellow colours, starting 4th. 5th is the white Sierra David Matthias. 6th is Paul Neville's white and blue, very Ford liveried Escort. Right, rapidly through the countdown. Safety car, pace cars it is, moves off. And so now the race cars follow suit. Opportunity to get a bit of warmth into tyres and discover where the traction may or may not be. The Fiestas and the Focuses, I think, are going to be worth keeping an eye on in the course of the race because, as I say, they're a little bit more nimble. In fairness to the Matthias family, they're both in the Sapphire-shaped Sierra Sapphire Cosworths, which when they came along in their heyday were absolutely demon to win Group N and production saloon spec races. But never so successful in the 2-litre British touring car era. Down through a wet cascades then comes Piers Grange, the trailer manufacturer. one or two other drivers that are worth keeping an eye on. A little bit further back, Darren Owen with his Ford Escort, the Chase Metal Recycling backed car at Dows's company. He was one of the stars in the 1990s of the Inca Race Midland Bangor racing scene, and then stopped racing while his son took up the competition cudgels instead, and then Daz came back to racing in classic hot rods and has spread his wings to circuit racing. He's always been a great fan of Fords, whether it was with an Escort in classic hot rods or, I suppose, in his Bangor racing days, like pretty much everybody else around him. It always used to be a Granada, which was the vogue car of the time, but Daz will be one to watch. I mentioned already the Sierra of Mike Manning, but throw into the mix as well Malcolm Wise, who's been racing Fords for a long time. And so on the track surface as we have it now, it's going to be interesting to see who the survivors are, who the clever drivers are that don't use all of the horsepower when they can't, and therefore risk going off the road. Number 29 is the Mike Furley Ford Escort Mark 1, backed by Derek Hale's new homes in Norfolk. Derek himself, former racer on the circuits and ovals. Big slide to get warmth into the rubber from Josh Payton's Cortina you saw coming out of the chicane. There's Mike Manning's Texaco liveried Sierra. The Jägermeister Ford Capri in the background with its V8 engine is Alan Breck, the ABC house and extension calculations backed car. So it is a very slow pace lap. You've got to say this. One of the reasons for having a warming up lap is to get warmth into the tyres, but the pace car driver is being rather timid on a wet road, perhaps understandably, but it's certainly not helping the race cars, and a problem by the look of it for 87, because peeling onto the cut through at Hislops is David Matthias. That, by the look of it, is the end of his Sierra, and I wonder whether that's going to delay the start, because he's going to park presumably up the escape road. Hopefully that is out of the way, and is he going to have to park it and retire, or can he do a sort of cars and a probably reset for 87, because peeling onto the cut through at Hislops moving is David Matthias. That, by the look of it, is the end of his Sierra. I wonder whether that's going to delay the start, because he's going to park start presumably up the escape road. If he doesn't, then he'll get a penalty. So 87, hopefully that is out of the way, and is he going to have to park it and retire, or can he do a sort of and a probably reset for 87, peeling onto the cut through also back right off. David Matthias, what's wrong with Dad. So those two now, the end of his Sierra. I wonder whether that's going to delay the start, because he's going to park start as they work their way up towards Druids. So Scott Matthias goes to the back as well, and the race will be getting underway shortly after this very slow formation lap behind the pace car, which seems to be taking forever. They crawl their way out of Druids. So the lights are out on top of the safety car. Everybody now should get themselves in that 2x2 Noah's Ark formation, ready for the start. Tiptoeing down towards Lodge Corner. The pace car, as it is, will head for the pit lane, finally. And then the race will be underway with Piers Grange rather quicker on his toes than Jim Hutchison behind him, who's fallen quite a long way back. Now, it's up to the front row drivers to control the pace, which Piers Grange seems to have done a rather better job of. The lights go out. We go racing in a big slide. Paul Neville has lost it coming over the line, and he's in the barriers already on the pit straight. He just lost traction. There he is up against the barrier coming out of Deer Leap. So the race is on, but there's already a car, as you can see, up against the barriers. So the cars go down towards Old Hall Corner. Paul Neville is going to get himself going. Jim Hutchison comes through on the inside line and takes the lead from Piers Grange. Those two Escorts have made a good getaway. Paul Neville's car is trying to rejoin as everybody else battles out of Cascades. In third place looks like being Tom Ovenden. In fourth place, I would offer you, is the Cortina Mark II of Josh Payton. And then the Fiestas are going to be next in the queue. Yellow flag on the start straight as Paul Neville has got going again, so he's somewhat delayed, but the road is clear at any rate as the leaders come out of Shell Oil's corner. Again, 15 minutes of racing, and the drivers hoping that the road dries out enough for them to be able to apply all of the power and get some grip, and it might just do so late race. But Jim Hutchison then, who didn't look all that keen on the end of the formation lap, is the race leader with the tail wagging as he comes out of Britain's over hilltop. Great noise that the car makes, immaculately presented, and a proper kind of throwback to the Special Saloons era with a big rear wing on the car. In second place is Piers Grange. Look at the gap these three have pulled already over everybody else. Battle on amongst the Fiestas though there. Look, there's 77. James Allen goes charging through on the outside line. In fact, battle on amongst the Focuses, I should say. That's a Fiesta in strife though. That's 44 Oliver Bullion and goes across the grass. The Focus of James Allen back on track. So at the moment, it's just finding traction, it's surviving that's key to all of this. Down through Hislops they turn, and so up Clay Hill, lap 1 is going to be completed imminently by Jim Hutchison and Piers Grange. They are building the gap quite nicely over the opposition. Alan Brett goes through with the Jägermeister coloured Capri, and towards the end of lap 1 of 15 minutes of racing will come the leaders in a moment. 5:03 goes through, that's Jay Hinton's Ford Focus. But the leaders have already gone by. Jim Hutchison is ahead of a very sideways Piers Grange, who has lost it going into Old Hall Corner out of second place. And looking out of the window, just to tell you, because it's important, it's the second place car, it's in the gravel bed. There he is. Piers Grange is in the gravel in Old Hall Corner, and that was all the amount of power on the pit straight. The car had a massive fishtail. We've got one or two others. Oh dear, overtaking under a yellow flag there. Look, the white Fiesta shouldn't have done that. That was, I rather fear, Oliver Bullion. So hopefully he will redress that and back off. But coming out of the corner, it is going to be Tom Ovenden up into second place. And yes, Oliver Bullion has seen the error of his ways, and he's not just let Josh Payton through, but also James Allen's Focus. So the yellows wave. Now this new gravel trap at Old Hall Corner that has ensnared Piers Grange, new for this year, that going past Josh Payton is James Allen. That Focus is absolutely flying. But the concern would be that the car needs to be removed from the gravel bed and a red flag might have to be shown. So I'm keeping an eye on the gantry just to see what happens next. We are going to have the safety car. That's what we're going to do. So the safety car is going to be deployed. The race neutralised to remove Piers Grange and his car from the gravel. Nobody touched him, I promise you. Although we didn't see it, I was watching it out of the window, and it was just the amount of power as the turbo kicked in. The back started to wag, and there was just nothing Piers could do to hold it. Around it went, and it looped its way into the gravel. He's out of the race. There's another car that has just come down the pit lane. It's Paul Neville's rather battered Escort after its calamity at the start of the race. So not a good start to the race for Mark II Escorts, I'm afraid to say. Safety car then on track. Gives us a chance to have a look at one or two of the others, including Alex Boehm's Mark VI Fiesta there. Mike Manning behind, masquerading as Klaus Ludwig or Steve Soper or Klaus Niedwitz or Pierre Giudone, who were the Eggenberger drivers those seasons. And the safety car awaits the leaders. It will scoop them all up once the leader comes over the line, and Jim Hutchison has just done so. There he is. That's the race leader. Second place now will be Tom Ovenden there, moving up from junior rallycross and having a dabble in circuit racing at this level after being the choker package for the last couple of years. And then it's going to be a long, long wait, I think, before we have anybody for third, and I would suggest it's going to be James Allen's Ford Focus that's third. It is. Fourth now, Josh Payton. Fifth, Oliver Bullion. And then another big gap before Alex Boehm will be sixth. Mike Manning seventh in the Sierra Cosworth. And in eighth place now is going to be Todd Garner. Ninth will be Robert Lewis, and then Jay Hinton to round out the top 10. Get the feeling, though, this is going to be a long safety car period, because as yet, there is no recovery vehicle on hand to drag Piers Grange's car out of the gravel bed. And a 15-minute race doesn't offer you many laps anyway on a long circuit. 9 minutes done already. Sorry, 9 minutes to go already, I should say. So we've had the first third of the race. So safety car slows everybody down. Once, presumably, they're all in a line, then the instruction can be given for the recovery crews to go to work. There you can see second placed Tom Upington trying to find a bit of traction on the outside, where sometimes there's a little bit more grip. They're going through number 49, almost ICS livery, that Piers Warwick's Escort, the Mark 1. Crossways garage, a Bromley entered car. It's got Jägermeister all around him, with Alan Beck ahead and Luke Bennett behind. Very smart Castrol liveried Escort. It's Mike Thurley's car, another former oval racer. Luke Bennett's Eurocar V8. Number 186 Colin Claxton. And the Ford Pumas, a little bit further back. Right, there is seemingly movement at Old Hall, so trying to sweep all the gravel away from the front of Piers Grange's car, and we've lost another one because the Fiesta of their Sam Shimwell, the Boomerang racing car, has stopped. I want to say that's down sort of near Island Bend, that end of the circuit, but that car trying to be pushed to a place of safety. Now hopefully, once Piers Grange's Escort is out of the gravel, it can be taken to the pit lane fairly swiftly. This is the heart-in-mouth moment where the driver hopes no more damage is done, because obviously with a big pull, puts a load through the front of the car, but I think the operation is complete. The rope can be detached, and so now a bit of gravel swept out of the front. Piers Grange hopefully can fire the car up. No, he can't. And then he's got to get himself off the wet grass. Why they couldn't have put the car on the grass is a bit of on the tarmac and off the grass, I don't know. Out of the race there is then Sam Shimwell's Fiesta. It was down at Island Bend, so that goes to the cut through, hides itself in a place of safety. Now, I'm afraid, Piers Grange's car won't fire, so it can't drive off the grass because it won't fire up, so it's going to be a further delay. And it still doesn't want to fire. So now they're going to have to get the rope attached again. Pace car, safety car up towards the line. And the marshals, I can see, are heading back to the Silver Escort at Old Hall. So whether that's to give it a shove to try and start the engine, or whether it's to push it off the grass, or both, we shall see in a moment. Race order remaining the same, of course, no overtaking permissible under the safety car procedure like this. And Jim Hutchison's big lead has all but evaporated. He'll hopefully be able to buy that back, of course, once the race goes live, although there won't be much of it left because we're already into the last 6 minutes. Marshall's there ready to hopefully give Piers Grange's car a shove. So the rope returns to the Escort. And the Matthias family with their Sapphire Cosworths, which started at the back, have now headed into the pit lane and rather look like they're going to the paddock as well. So frustration all round there. So yet another lap under the safety car. Big frustration for drivers that want to go racing, and this has taken at least 2 laps, I think. Piers Grange's car, I think, is finally out of the gravel and off the grass. Now it just needs to be towed somewhere safe, because clearly it doesn't want to fire up on its own. But on track, the Mark 1 Escorts, much modified, continue at the head of the pack, with Jim Hutchison leading the way. The modified Ford series, not a championship, but a series of races. And the class structure based on engine size and also whether or not the cars are multi-valve or have EcoBoost engines or the V6 or V8. The whole idea really is to attract in as many different cars as possible of varying levels of modification. There were something like 39 of them at Silverstone, 29 of them here, so it's still a very healthy grid, and with the drivers making their way down towards Britain's, the clock has got 3 3/4 minutes on it. I think the road is clear. There'll be a bit of gravel on the outside of Old Hall Corner, but this could end up with just one more racing lap, and currently we're only on lap 4. So that rain shower has made it spectacular, but it's not really helped from the driver's point of view their ability to go racing. So as the cars come, again, very slowly behind the pace car, the safety car as it is this time, out of Hislops, they're eager to get on with it. And of course the problem is when you go so slowly that any warmth you've got in your tyres just disappears completely anyway, so the restart becomes even more leery. The lights are out, which is good news, and Jim Hutchison then, although the rain has stopped, it's still a greasy road. We've got Tom Ovenden behind him, James Allen third. Now he's made really good progress from 13th on the grid. Admittedly he's been helped by 1 or 2 people throwing themselves at the scenery, but he's also been a bold overtaker. That was kind of what I was looking for before the race started. A car that was going to be quick but didn't have so much power that it became unusable in these conditions. And actually James Allen might not be done yet. If he's really on his toes and Tom Ovenden or Jim Hutchison get a bit sideways ahead of him, he might be able to gain another place before the end of the race. So 1 more lap, hopefully 2 we can squeeze in before the checkered flag. The drivers then make their way up towards the line. The green flag is shown, the lights go back to green, we're back racing, and a very, very determined start coming from the little Fiesta further back in the queue, number 620, which absolutely blasts through the traffic of Todd Garner on the inside line. He was on his toes, certainly. I would suggest he did a bit of overtaking before the timing line, not after it, but even so, he's gained places, and the leaders go down through Denton's in towards Cascades then, with hopefully 1 more lap to squeeze in before the very end. 39 there, Josh Payton, he got mugged off the line. Mike Manning's understeering himself straight on. The rally crosser is off-road. Go on, Mike, keep your boot in. He does so, slides the car to tarmac, to grass. Everybody finds a way past him. Mike Manning will be able to rejoin as there, look, through the traffic goes Daz Owens, very smart red Mark 1 Escort. Up towards Island Bend, he's got the Ford Focuses squabbling behind him as well now. Daz is on the mission. He's put himself up past Jay Hinton in 5:03, and at this rate, place in the top 6 might beckon for Deadly Daz. Comes out of Shell Oil's corner. So Daz Owen in the red Escort, getting himself on the back of the Fiesta and Focus traffic to try to wriggle through. You can see though his much more modified Escort with a little bit of a wag of the tail as the power kicks in, comes then now down towards Hislops, and also looking brave still Todd Garner round the outside, number 620. Darren Owen just gets the car turned into the corner, moves himself up past 24 Alex Bohm's Mark 6 Fiesta in the process, as they come then now up towards the approach to Clay Hill. So the 2V engine Escort of Daz Owen looking to try to gain a place. Now 24 seconds or so on the clock. Where is the race leader? He's coming down towards Lodge. There in second place is Tom Ovenden, James Allen third, Josh Payton fourth. This is the fight for fifth then. Oliver Bullion ahead of now Daz Owen in sixth, though he had put himself into the top 6. But the question is whether they can squeeze another lap out of it. Thankfully the answer is yes. Jim Hutchison goes through, pulling away again from Tom Ovenden, so they're on to the last lap of the race. James Allen third, that's where he's going to plateau. In fourth place is Oliver Bullion, and in fifth, it's going to be Josh Payton. Sixth now for Todd Garner, and seventh is Daz Owen, but he's about to make a move on the inside going down towards Old Hall Corner. The Mark 1 Escort then looks for the inside. Daz Owen shows his nose, but the Fiesta chops him off for the moment. And now they make that run down towards Cascades. So the clock has hit 0. There are 1 or 2 others being able to gain ground a little bit further back now that the road starts to dry. Jim Hutchison through in 181, race leader. And that's your second place car of Tom Ovenden. So the Mark 1 Escorts, first and second, and seventh, because don't forget Daz Owen's car also is knocking on the door of that top 6. Jim Hutchison, though, looking as though a race win beckons for him. He's also going to hope that things are a little bit drier this afternoon. Racing is going to restart in just over 45 minutes' time. That's Daz Owen going around the outside then of Todd Garner for 6th place. So he's put himself into the top 6. And can he do anything about Josh Payton's Mark II Cortina before the end? Because he's getting much, much closer. Look as they bounce their way over the curb. The back flicks out on both the Escort and then the Cortina ahead. Over Hilltop they come, down towards Hislops. Daz Owen is certainly closing. He's certainly got the pace. Breaks for the corner, breaks for the chicane. Is he going to be able to dive up the inside? The answer there is no. Goes through the right, through the left, then right again. Out of Knickerbrook corner, and then the run up the hill. So this, I think, is his moment to make the pass, isn't it? Because he was just heading to the inside line though as they went up towards Druids. But Jim Hutchinson is set for a race win in the first of our 2 modified Ford Series races of the day. This time as he comes up out of Dearly, there's going to be a checkered flag at the ready, and Jim Hutchinson wins the first modified Ford Series race of the day. Second across the line is going to be Tom Ovenden. There he is. And for 3rd place, it's going to be the Ford Focus of James Allen. In 4th, the little Fiesta of Oliver Bullion, one of the drivers of the race there, but underlining how sometimes too much power is a handicap. In 5th place, it is going to be Daz Owen, because he did go through on the run to Druids, and a change on the line for 6th, because we've had Todd Garner go through ahead of Josh Payton. So with 1 or 2 transponders not working, that's why the race classification is still shuffling. Everybody else comes over the line, including Mike Manning there, who got himself back on track after his gravelly moment, and also Wayne Crabtree after his travails earlier on in the qualifying session. The Ford Pumas chasing home the Escort Cosworth of Malcolm Wise. So Jim Hutchinson, the race winner, and considering he only had 2 laps after the safety car, to win by 8.3 seconds is pretty impressive stuff, I would have thought. James Allen then 3rd. Jim Hutchinson, James Allen, Oliver Bullion, Todd Garner, class winners. So also Piers Warwick, a little bit further back with his Mark I Escort. So we'll see the Fords out again later on. After lunch, the order is going to be the same. Formula Fords from the BMW, and then the Fords before we get to the Fun Cup race. And then 4 hours for the Fun Cup Endurance season opener. So Jim Hutchinson's win, 8.3 seconds. Might not have qualified at the top, but even so, a remarkable job done. And it remains to be seen whether Piers Grange and Paul Neville, and indeed the Matthias Izzis, can get their cars ready for race 2, because if they are having to come up from the rear of the grid, they'll be well worth watching. So let's have a look at the provisional result then. Jim Hutchinson, the winner of our modified Ford Series race, ahead of Tom Ovenden, with James Allen a class winning 3rd, a class winning 4th Oliver Bullion, Darren Owen 5th in the end, ahead of Todd Garner, who took 6th on the line from Josh Payton. Robert Lewis was 8th from Alex Bone. Mike Thurley with his very smart Escort Mark 1 10th. Alan Breck next, and Wayne Crabtree started 29th and got himself up to 12th. A mega effort ahead of Mike Manning and Matt McCarthy's Fiesta in 14th. 15th, Piers Warwick ahead of Colin Claxton's Zack Speed Escort Recreation. Luke Bennett's Eurocar was ahead of Dave Barrett's Fiesta. Malcolm Wise fended off the Hadfields, and then Nick Head with Jay Hinton, Chris Baker behind. We lost Piers Grange, we lost Scott and David Matthias as well. And we lost Sam Shimwell, and we lost Paul Neville after his dramas off the rolling start. So there's not that much time for the Ford teams to do work, but there is work to be done, and hopefully we'll have a good complement of cars for our second race for them, which will come up a little bit later on in the afternoon. So as I say, there's a short break from race action. We'll hear from our winning Ford drivers though, and then we'll have a chance to catch up on Fun Cup news. Jamie Peters-Ennis will be patrolling the pits in the race, but also before it, we'll work with some of the drivers and teams before we get into our 4-hour endurance race. That's going to come during the race break, but the stream, as I say, will continue, and then we'll be back to a full afternoon of racing with these 3 categories that have delivered action. It's a shame that we've had the interruption to the Fords, but and the red flag in the BMWs, but some good racing this morning, more to come. the rest of the field you can see making its way around to the Parc Fermé area. Mick Head's Escort Cosworth in the Martini colour scheme makes its way towards the pit lane. Next race then, Formula Ford in about 40 minutes, and see whether or not Richard Frey can do the double after the way that he went earlier on. Don't bet against him. I think he's going to be the message to the opposition. And then we'll look forward to BMW and Ford action with Fun Cup 4 hours. And it's a good entry. I know I keep saying this about a proper endurance race, but got some good names in there, whether it's experienced all-rounders like Jason Minshaw, whether it's previous champions like Neil Plymmer, or last year's champions from the Team Olympian GRD squad, or the very, very experienced Johnny Nolan with, what, 10, if not more now, Le Mans starts to his name. So there's a lot to look forward to in Fun Cup. Should be a really intriguing race, especially given the way the pit window works. Scott Woodwhistle will join me up here for that, but we've sent him back out into the rain to go and find our Ford drivers, and we'll hear from them in a few moments' time. So there's an opportunity for the teams to do a bit of running repairs to cars. Cars to be retrieved around the circuit as well by the recovery team, and then we'll be back in business with the Super Classic Formula Fords Race 2 coming up after lunch. Richard Frey looking to do the double from pole position as he did earlier, despite his spin, but he'll be hard to beat. Right, Jim Hutchinson dominates our modified Ford Series Race 1. He's with Scott.
Well, slightly eventful first modified Ford Series race, to say the least, but we have got a top three here, and we'll be able to have a chat to him in a second. Let's have a chat first with Jim Hutchinson, who's our race winner, of course, in this really right, beautiful green and gold Mark 1 Escort. Looks like you were quite enjoying the sort of slightly damp, slightly wet conditions.
Aye, the car is actually very good. We just there's a new engine in it for the start of this year. It has had no testing. I didn't have time to test it back home in Northern Ireland, so it was a test day for the car and for myself, because I haven't raced in maybe 5 or 6 years myself, so it was a test day for both of us, so it's paid off. Yeah,
it's not a bad test day to win a race, is it?
No, it's nice. You have to take them when they come, but yeah, it was good. It was good.
Looks like you had some initial fun with Tom and the other RSR over there. These Mark 1 RSRs have got quite some poke in a straight line, haven't they?
Oh, they're class. I just love them. I have 2 of them. I have one back home again, and it's the same as that one, only it's road legal. So they're magnificent, yoke, definitely. Yeah.
And you're part of a magnificent grid of cars with all sorts of different Fords, shapes and sizes, so it fits in nicely.
Well, that's why back home in the north of Ireland, we don't have grids like anywhere near this. Plus, we've no calibre racing like this as well. So, yeah, this is my first time over racing with the Ford guys, and it definitely won't be my last.
Yeah, hopefully first of many, and you got to do the double now later on.
Oh, don't put the pressure on. No. Yeah.
Listen, you drove superbly. Well done. We'll see you for race 2. Congrats.
This
brings Tom over in second place. Apologies, he was signaling to give him a push, but it had to be the marshal to give him a push. But nonetheless, great to see. Also, we should point out to Sim Motorsport as well. Of course, you're one of their sports and graduate, one of the BRACC partners as well. Shout out to them. But Tom, what a car to drive, and apart from the small little hiccup at the end there, amazing performance for second. How was it?
Yeah, it's always very, very special to drive this car. With our family story the cars come from, it's always very special to do, and it's an awesome machine. Just a slight electrical issue. We're on a bit of a countdown with the battery, and it is just, I timed it absolutely perfectly. Yeah. Conking out as soon as I come back in the pit, so we'll get it sorted for race 2. But no, I really enjoyed that. The car was actually had more grip than I thought in those tricky conditions on the slicks. So yeah, it was really good. I'm good time to be too.
In the opening moments, you were keeping Jim honest in the other RSRs. So that must have been fun, both of you going back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, it was good on the last lap. Lost the power steering and a couple of other bits, electrical things. So I was like, okay, we've had a big gap, we'll settle. But I don't think I was catching him anyway. He was on rails. So, but no, these cars are so fun to drive. Real drive distance to what I'm used to, but it's really good fun. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
So apart from fixing them little electric glitches, just put yourself on the front row of the grid and maybe try and beat him down to turn 1 next time.
That's the plan. I have to make sure my right foot's buried on the whole of the start.
Hopefully it's not too damp out there next time.
Yeah, hopefully it's nice and dry. We're quicker than dry, so if it's nice and dry, it's much more simple. So we much prefer that.
Great stuff. Well done, Tom. Congratulations. Excellent work. Good stuff. Let's bring James in third place. place. How are you? Right, third place, good to see you back on the podium. You said to me the Focus was running well this morning. It's in tip-top shape, and third place seems to be pretty on the point there.
Yeah, we had a few issues in qualifying. Just didn't really fall to us. But the race, we started 13th, and my idea was just to get ahead as quickly as I could, and we picked away a few. I think a few fell off, didn't they, the first few turns?
There was a handful, shall we say?
Yeah, which helped. Yeah, I just struggled with rear tyre temps, so the back end's just like a bit like the rear-wheel drive boys. It's just sliding around, and it's don't really do well for your confidence. Safety car helped. Maybe I caught up, but again they got away. Just one of those, limp it to the end, and it's a third.
And briefly, because first time I spoke to you on camera since the start of the season, you got a new aero package on the back of the car. If you want to quickly spin and have a look at it, it's a slightly different, slightly taller rear wing than you had last year. Just talk us through the change on that.
So we was forever being told by people who know better than us, it's a parachute. Take it off. So I basically said I'm not taking it off until I've got an alternative, and it's basically the current generation touring car wing that we've put a little bit further out than what they're allowed to do, but within our regs, and yeah, it's made a big difference, certainly on the straights.
Excellent. Well, it seemed to make a difference as well to get you up to third, so all working well, and fingers crossed for race 2.
Brilliant.
Good to see you, mate. Excellent stuff. Well done. Right, so that's now going into the lunch break now, and whilst we do that, I believe we're going to hand over to our esteemed colleague Jamie Peters-Ennis, who we'll bring in here to have a quick chat about, because he's had a chat to a few of the teams down in pit lane ahead of today's opening round of the 2024 Fun Cup Endurance Championship. And I think, Jamie, the smile on your face says it that same as me and everyone else, you're quite excited for this, aren't you?
It's only been 170 days since we were last here in October.
Not that you're counting.
No, not at all. And it'd be nice if the weather was a bit nicer, but yeah, really excited. There's been huge social media stuff and promotion on the Fun Cup this year. We've got 24 teams, new partners with Gala Performance, obviously GT carrying on with the tyre suppliers. So yeah, really looking forward to going down the pit lane. I have warned a few of the teams to look out for me, so they'll probably all go run and hide like they normally do. But yeah, hopefully you, David, and I will have a great time this afternoon.
And just for context, 5 former champion teams, including the defending champions. Different colour scheme for them this year because they've got a slightly different driver lineup, and the likes of Johnny Molam and Scott Mansell on the grid. This promises on paper to be quite a mega 4 hours in store.
It's going to be a mega season, I think. I think it's going to be one of the most open seasons in a long time, and we understand there's more cars coming out throughout the year as well. Yeah, going back into this race, as you say, a stellar lineup, and great to see Scott Mansell out there with his dad, and great to see the kids coming in as well. We saw it here last year, October. Mikey Porter and Ted Bradbury, they really laid down the gauntlet, and Mikey's back this weekend deputising for Neil Burrows, who sadly can't be here, and what he did a couple of weeks ago, they'll be right up at the sharp end as well.
Excellent. We're going to hand over to you now so you can have a chat, but for those who want to find out more information on the championship, head to funcup.co.uk. You can watch all the action on the website from the front page. You can also head to see what cars are for sale, info about the teams, about the season ahead, and so it's going to be quite mega. But Jamie's going to be your eyes and ears down in pit lane for a while, so we're going to go into a lunch break, and I'm going to go and converse with David and see how the afternoon looks. But we'll hand you the capable hands of Jamie Peters-Ennis. He's going to take you through the pit lane walk before we get into our afternoon action here at Oulton Park. So I shall hand the microphone over, and we'll see you in a few minutes' time.
So while Jamie relocates from the Parc Ferme area to the pit lane, and our camera crews scurry with him, let's just reflect on a busy morning of racing. Richard Frey taking on us in the Super Classic Formula Ford Championship, and helping himself therefore, I know it's early days, but benefiting from the absent state of Alex Ames to really help his championship hopes. We've had a good win for Joe Doble in the BMW Compact Cup, and a great drive, first time here, first time in the series by Northern Irish driver Jim Hutchinson in the modified Ford series. The officials, as you can perhaps see, going towards Britain's recovering cars. The track workers on the start and finish line looking at barrier damage after Paul Neville's car clanged the Armco. So although it is a break, in quotes, there's still little activity for people to need to worry about before we go racing, which will be in about half an hour's time. 12:40 we're being told is going to be the start of the Formula Ford race. Again, they'll come from the assembly area around onto the grid. The Super Classic Championship that has morphed through different iterations, but go back years and years and years, was the sort of pre-90 Formula Ford series. The champion of Oulton, which runs within it at the Oulton Park events, as you see the barrier repair work going on the pit straight, goes back to the very early 80s when MCD ran Oulton Park and Brands Hatch and Snetterton, and came with these one circuit Formula Ford ideas that were then copied, and they were hugely successful. And then one or two drivers said, wouldn't it be nice to go to a second circuit? And champion of Oulton became the Northwest Series. But go back to its early days, and the likes of Richard Peacock was the champion, and Richard Street from North Wales, the Booths, John Butcher Booth, that went on to, of course, run a Formula One team, John Brolly Booth, another early champion. And then for a number of seasons, champion of Oulton Formula Ford racing, always enlivened by the Ecclestons, Roger and then Peter Eccleston, that came along, took on, in 1986, it was Roger versus Scott Stringfellow, which was a great season of racing. And then Peter Kay came along and dominated with Mike Waite. Graham Riley had his very successful spell, and on and on and on it went. But Formula Ford racing, even though the cars can trace their origins back to the 1960s, still produce decent grids, good competitive racing. It's perhaps a surprise that we haven't got a few more of them out this weekend, but the quality of racing, no doubt, as we saw with some good fights in that earlier race, will be mirrored once more in the second race of the day. The BMWs, which continue to entertain, of course, after giving good racing in the greasy conditions earlier on in the day, a good low-cost way of getting into motorsport. And although the compact itself isn't perhaps as common on the road, maybe a second class might be under consideration for the One Series, just to safeguard the future of low-cost BMW racing, because there's certainly no shortage of parts and no shortage of enthusiasm to go racing. And then the modified Fords, well, there's a rather sorry-looking Escort being retrieved, having pulled off down at the Island Bend part of the circuit. That hopefully can be made good for race 2. And the Fords themselves, which have been delivering plenty of drama and gave good racing at Silverstone as well. I think I said at the time, it's the worst track surface that you could have had for those cars with that downpour of rain just before they came out onto the circuit. So, as far as the afternoon is concerned, the forecast is that the rain should have passed through, and hopefully, you can see a break in the cloud, the road should get a little bit drier. It's still not a patch on how wet it was for the British GT Easter Monday activity, in which the BRSCC had a big hand, of course, as permit holders for British GT and Ginetta Racing. Barrier repairs on the pit straight completed, so that's all good, that's all done. You've also seen just how slippery it is, not only on the road, but getting onto that wet, friction-free grass as well. Matt Flowers' BMW was the real casualty from the races earlier on in the day. But hopefully that car is going to be able to take its place on the rear of the grid for the second of the BMW races a little bit later on. So the Formula Fords, in about half an hour's time, will go to the assembly area. And Fun Cup drivers also preparing themselves. As we've been hearing, it's a intriguing entry with some drivers new to Fun Cup, some very experienced all-rounders. So lots to look forward to when we get to the final race of the days. It will be the 4 hours. Hopefully there'll be no dramas in earlier races that have a knock-on effect. One of the reasons I think why the club is keen to crack on is to make sure that 4-hour race fits in, because it's got to be checkered flag at 6:28 and engines off by 6:30 for local bylaws, come what may. So what they don't want is for a 4-hour race to become a 3 hours and 50-minute race. They want everyone in that to have their full allocation of track time. The driving order has already been decided by the team, so we've got a rough idea of who's going to be in the car when. And that's going to be fascinating again, because you're going to have quicker drivers against slower. Cars' pace will ebb and flow during the course of the race. And the Fun Cup grid, although they do have a qualifying session, of course, is based not on that, but on a balloted grid with the last race winner, or as it is the first round, last year's champions, starting at the back. So that is the way the grid's going to line up when we get to the Fun Cup race a little bit later on in the day. And hopefully by then it will be on a dry road. The Oulton Park circuit, which again plays host not only to club racing most weekends, but has had a international visit of GT, GB3, GB4 already, has its familiar historic weekend, the Oulton Park Gold Cup later on in the season as well, and not just the BRSCC here during the course of the season, but many of the leading clubs all busy with their race calendars through the year. The pit lane lies quiet for the moment, but it's going to get very busy during the course of the afternoon, especially in the Fun Cup, because with 5 pit windows, it's going to be pretty frantic down there with the cars refuelling, driver changes, lots for the teams to do. So as the teams get themselves sorted for this afternoon.
Huh? Are you in bed? No, I was loud something. Ah, right, okay. I just heard the letterbox go.
Cascades is still a bit damp and greasy offline, but getting drier, and will play host to Formula Fords in due course. Richard Frey starting our second Formula Ford race from pole position. Paul Mason's going to be with him at the front of the grid after that good battle that he had with Jake Shortland earlier on in the day. And then Chris Stones and Peter Daly, I think, also set to continue their battle that was spectacular earlier on. Paul Britton, Oliver Buckton, Ray Smith, all further back on that grid, but those drivers looking as though they're going to be in the mix as well, because not only do we have the overall battles, but there's the class situation to look for as well. So with the Fun Cup drivers and teams sort of getting themselves ready, for them it's a calm before the storm, really. They have their qualifying session, then there's quite a break, and then they have the pressure on of their race. But I think I can see Jamie in the pit lane now, so he's getting closer, I think, to being able to talk to one or two of the drivers. And if he can shepherd them out of their garages into the fresh air, then we'll be laughing. The Fun Cup that began, what, 2002, back at Rockingham. Graham Butterworth, who was the man initially behind the concept, is here, was due to be driving, but I noticed that he has withdrawn from any driving stints, so he was limping a bit this morning, but whether or not that's impacted on why he's not driving, we'll try and elicit. But it's going to be his son Craig with Ian Wood as the two drivers in that car, alternating stints, and it was his efforts with Unioil as the original sponsor that got Fun Cup off the ground, and one of the drivers that we have, Neil Plimmer, I think I'm right in saying, has done pretty much every Fun Cup race, driver and team owner. Jeff Fawcett was his initial co-driver. They came out of the Star of Mallory and thought, we'd like some more track time, where can we go? And Fun Cup was absolutely the right place for them. So the car that's PLR Racing, Ben Pitch joining Neil Plimmer, and that's a stalwart team. Jason Minshaw parachuted in to join Mark Burton. He'll be another driver to watch. And Julian Thomas as well, coming back into Fun Cup from historic racing. Back for a proper crack at the season, I think, this year. See if he can take the title. He's going to be a man to watch as well. We've got Jack Constable, Russell Joyce, experienced saloon racers, Harry Mailer out of Ginettas. Many of these names we'll get to in more detail as the race unfolds, but it's going to be interesting, that's for sure, especially, as I say, when you've got drivers of different pace, sort of ebbing and flowing, cars' relative fortunes accordingly. So with activity in the pit lane to come, with drivers getting themselves set for the afternoon, and with teams also looking across into the paddock, being quite industrious, trying to prepare cars for later on. The BRSCC's Oulton Park race day enjoying its lunch break. Spectators still arriving. They've had a busy morning. They've still got some racing to look forward to this afternoon. And although 4 hours feels like a long race, I suspect it's going to fly by, because with so many pit stops, so many different drivers, it's going to be busy, which is one of the beauties of endurance racing. And Jamie, no doubt, will confirm that once we get into the meat of it all. But for now, he's busy, I think, trying to round up drivers who are being reluctant to get out into the rain. So we're nearly there with them. Jim Hutchinson's Ford, just reflecting on that modified Ford Series race, could eat your dinner off. Absolutely immaculately presented car. Racing here for the first time. Jim from Northern Ireland, new to the series. And as he was saying to Scott Woodward, he's certainly not going to be the last time he comes over. It's not easy, of course. It's an expensive trip from Northern Ireland. It's perhaps easier to come here or Anglesey than it would be to go to Snetterton, say, or Brands. But if the commitment is there, it's just a shame that his 15 minutes of racing was somewhat interrupted by that long safety car period. But at least he got the win, and hopefully on a dry road, it'll be another good fight when we get to race 2 coming up a little bit later on in the day. Here in the background on the camera how blustery it is. It's still quite a chilly day at Oulton Park, and hopefully if the rain stops, that blustery wind will help to dry the track fairly rapidly, but drivers are still going to have to be pretty careful offline even when we get to the afternoon racing. Right, let us finally head to the pit lane. Jamie, I think, is sorted. He's found some drivers, and we can look forward to the Fun Cup season in the company of Jamie Peters-Ennis.
Hello everybody and welcome to our opening round of the 2024 Fun Cup Endurance Championship season and our first live pit walk of the year. And what a way to start with our reigning champions, Olympian GRD Racing. We've got Chris Devell and Riley Phillips here. Chris, the car's looking a little bit different, but it's nice to have the number 1 back on the car, isn't it?
It is very nice to have the number 1, and you're right, it's somewhat changed its clothing. We're no longer that green machine, but I think the new livery looks very good, and we've got some new sponsors and a new driver with us this year.
Yeah, you got Simon Rudd on board. How did that all come about? Obviously, you were watching how he was performing last year, and we knew Christian Rose was going to take a step back this year from driving. When obviously Simon coming on board, it's a great addition.
It is a fantastic addition, and as soon as Simon made it clear that he was available, we snapped him up. He did some fantastic races at the end of last year, some fantastic times, and we're really pleased to have him on board. Oh, here he is. I think he's just... Was someone having lunch?
Yeah.
Other Chris Brands are available. Riley, as we say, the car's still green on the inside. You want to keep that number 1 for this year and obviously going to next year as well. And great start with good, decent grid draw as well, because you're starting last, but as you know, anything can happen in this championship.
Yeah, obviously, starting at the back because we champions of last year. It's not all a bad thing. We could avoid the chaos of the first lap. Oulton obviously notorious for its safety cars during the first couple hours. Yeah, the car looks fantastic, and it'd be amazing to hold the number 1 again for another consecutive year. So, yeah, hopefully all goes well today.
And Simon, new boy in the team, how are you settling in?
I think it's been all right. I hope so. Anyway, yeah, these guys have been, they've looked after me yesterday. Like getting used to the new car, it's completely different. The inside's completely different. All the controls are different. Pit stops are different. Everything. So yeah, but it was a good learning curve yesterday.
And your thoughts for the race? As we say, you've got to start 24th, but as we know in Fun Cup, anything can happen, Chris.
First race of the new season, it always seems to happen at Oulton, and even more so today, particularly with a bit of a damp track to maybe start with. I think there's going to be a lot of frills and spills.
Well, good luck. Enjoy the rest. We'll let you go and have some lunch now.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. Right, we'll have a little bit of a walk down. Next up, we've got the 200 car, which is the Red River Sport. That will have Johnny Molam, Bonamy Grimes and Gareth Williams driving. They've got a full campaign for this year. And next door, we've got the Signature RV. That's the Steve Ruston, John Whitehouse and Harry Mailer jumping in for this weekend. We'll also see Marcus Clutton in that car. If you pan round here, Tom, next door, they've got the Door Shut, which is the Fueled Up Racing team. That will have Paul and Wendy Ellis-Smith, Jamie Price and Paul Taylor in the car this year. They're in the 210 car. Then next to Garage 5, we've got PLR Racing, which is the veteran Neil Plimmer, who's done every season, since its inception from 2002. So he's done over 100 Fun Cup races, and he still absolutely loves it. He's got Ben Pitch with him, and then the UVO Hoffman's Motorsport team, which has the wonderful, fabulous Randaccio with Farchini in the 225 car, 4-time champions, and of course they're going to want the #1 spot back for. Next up is one of our.
Well, so yeah, having a great weekend.
Excellent stuff. Thanks a lot, Scott. We'll catch up later on in the race. Next up, we've got one of the other. Okay, sorry about that. We've got next up is one of the other JPR for hire cars. That's got Dave Scrappy Clark and Andy Posty Bicknell, who's also returning to the championship after a few seasons away. Then we've got a couple more teams which are further down the pit lane. We've got, as you say, 24 teams throughout the year. We're going to grab some drivers who are currently in the garages. We're just trying to find some drivers now. It is the middle of the lunch break, so we're just seeing if we can find any drivers. So we're just waiting for some drivers now. Mike is just quickly grabbing some drivers. I can see if I can grab some. Right, he's found Scott Jess from NJ Tech, who always up for a chat. He's going to be driving the 249 car. He'll be partnering Will Abraham. Good to see you. Thank you for popping up.
It's okay.
How's it all been going so far?
No, it's been a really good weekend so far. We've worked on the car quite a lot over the winter, and we think it's paid off. We felt pretty quick yesterday, but it's hard to tell because there's no time in. And I think we were over a second quickest in quali. I know it is sort of the quali session doesn't give you the standard because everyone's doing different things, but it's always nice to be at the top, so we're kind of quite confident going into the race.
And last year, you know, the results were there, weren't they? You were up sort of at the sharp end pretty much every race. A couple of unfortunate incidents along the way, but that's motorsport, isn't it? It happens, and we know how tough this championship is. And this year, I mean, the lineup is getting stronger and stronger, isn't it? And we reckon it's probably going to be one of our toughest ever years.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's a lot of new drivers, a lot of good drivers coming back, a lot of nice liveries actually. And that's the thing, you've got to keep stepping your game up every year, or you're just going to get left behind. But I think that's what we need to do really, is just keep going, or you're just going to get swamped. But yeah, it's a long 4-hour race, and I think it's our 4th season now, so maybe some of the new teams might just fall a bit short, or maybe some of the pit stops, some of the small little tactics you gain over doing 4 seasons. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really exciting race. I just hope to stay out of trouble really, so we can enjoy it rather than being all stressed.
And you got Will Abraham with you. We understand he's with you for pretty much the whole year this time. He did some guest appearances last year. He's come on very quickly. Obviously, having a former champion as his dad helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think Will's a really good driver. He's not done a massive amount in karting or in cars, but he seems to have some natural talent there, which is pulling him through, and he's always straight on the pace. You know, if I had done as much as him, I'd be pretty useless, but luckily I've done quite a lot, so I can, you know, as a duo, I think we make a really strong team.
All right, excellent. Thanks a lot, Scott. That's Scott Jess from MJ Tech. Let's bring Vlad Vasiliev, Simon Coles and Adam Cunnington from the EDF crew in. We thought we'd make you walk up this end. then for a change.
We can get.
246 car, slightly different lineup for this one, Vlad. Matt's become team manager.
Yeah, he's got ambitions to follow in the footsteps of Christian Horner, so we decided to encourage him and support him all the way.
And you got Simon with you. He's with the 212 car last year. How's that partnership been coming on so far?
Really good. We're having a good time. We're really pushing each other in all the testing that we've done, and we have a very similar driving style, so we think it's going to suit us really well.
And how are you finding the 246 car? Have you driven all of them now in the EDF fleet?
I have actually. We've actually driven together for a good couple of years, but 246 I've only done, well, I did 2 laps in practice just for one reason or another and driving it out this morning. I think we have some good performance in the car, I think, so fingers crossed for the race. So they were starting quite a long way back, so we've got a chance to come through, hopefully.
Yeah, the grid draw curse has striked again, hasn't it?
Absolutely, but it makes us better drivers in the end. We've got to do a bit more work, so yeah.
And Adam, welcome back. I understand it's a selected campaign this year, isn't it? Because we know you've got other commitments. But happy to be back.
Yeah, great. Look forward to it. Always enjoy getting out in the Fun Cup, partnering with Victor in 104. So yeah, it should be fun. I think we've got a draw at the back of the grid, but hopefully we'll avoid some of the mayhem and come through.
All right, well, thanks a lot, guys. That's Vlad Vasiliev, Simon Coles and Adam Cunnington from the EDF Motorsport team. Right, Dave Postins, where is he? Here he is from Team 3 Motorsport. Mr. Bennett's done a runner, hasn't he? That's not ideal, is it? How's it all been going? Car looks great, doesn't it?
Good. Yeah, new graphics this year, which is quite nice. New livery and same old blue. But yeah, car's going really well. Really happy with it. Setup's good, engine's good. So yeah, just we'll run where we run. We're sort of middle order, hopefully, and yeah, just try and bring it home. That's the main thing, isn't it?
And it's your second full season with the team. It's starting to sort of gel quite nicely now, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with it. We kind of rub off each other it's a good friendly team. We're all mates really, and yeah, it is good fun. And come on, here's my other one.
He's a bit camera shy, is Andy.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to this season really. Yeah, try and get a full one in again and see how we go. Yeah.
And Andy, is as we said, second full season for you guys. You learnt a hell of a lot last year. Now it's just to keep that momentum going forward and get sort of toward the pointy end of the grid.
Yeah, I think there's some really quick people on there at the moment. If we can get sort of middle of the road today, we'll be really happy, I think. I think the top boys will be battling against each other pretty hard, so they might have a bit of a mad sessions and they might take each other off and give us an opportunity really. But I think if we can finish top 10, we'll be really happy with that. So yeah.
All right, fantastic. Thanks a lot, guys. That's Andy Bennett and David Postins from Team 3 Motorsport. Morning, Ted. How are we doing? It's Ted Bradbury from Morphos Racing. Mikey is somewhere, isn't he? I think he's gone off to do something. Yeah, you've borrowed Mr. Porter for this weekend because Sparky Neil Burrows couldn't be here. But final weekend last year, you just laid down the gauntlet and showed you're not here to do anything apart from winning, are you?
Yeah, we're definitely here to win, but we've got a really good team besides us. Morpheus, they're absolutely brilliant, and I'd just like to say a big thank you in advance to all the mechanics, and me and Mikey, teamed up like we did in the last round. Good friend of mine, he's a really good driver, and I'm looking forward to this race coming up.
And this year, the entry is so strong, isn't it? I mean, we've got lots of former champions coming back, more cars out there, 24-car grid, we understand more coming out for Croft. You're not going to have it all your own way, are you? But you're still going to fight right to the very end, aren't you?
Yeah, like I said, we're here to win, and it's a really competitive grid, but I believe we can do it, and I believe we have the pace to do it. So, big thank you to all my family, all the people that support me, and in advance, thank you to you guys as well for putting on a brilliant show.
And the old man's done all right on the wrap job, hasn't he?
He's done brilliant, as a few cars, but he's done mint. So, again, big thank you to my dad.
Okay, well, while we're here, we've got these GT tyres. They're an all-weather tyre, aren't they? So, and for those that don't know, the 4-hour race that we do, we don't actually change tyres, do we, Ted? So, what's it like out there? I mean, it's been a little bit greasy this morning. I mean, when I drove one of these cars in the pouring rain, they were so grippy. It was quite surprising. They're a great tyre, aren't they?
Well, I think they're absolutely brilliant because in both conditions, dry and wet, they are really fun to race on, and they are extremely grippy, like you said. So, at all time, I feel like I can push the car to its limit with these tyres on. and I think they're a perfect suit with this car, and probably many, many more as well.
And for anyone looking to come into the championship, because you did some other things last year as well, but you saw this and thought, this is where I want to be. It's a fantastic place to come, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's good atmosphere, and the racing is just absolutely brilliant. Like the tow, everything just makes the racing so exciting. It's a fight all the way till the finish line. Like we saw at the last round, so many cars close together coming across the finish line, and that's what you want to see in an endurance race. You want to see a fight till the end.
And I think as well, we saw a bit of a changing of the guard, didn't we? I mean, the average age of Ted's team when he won at Oulton Park, sorry, the combined age, was 49 years old across you, Reva and Mikey. I mean, that just shows for kids that want to go into endurance racing, you can come from karting into this, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's a brilliant starting point to your car career, but also there is so many more experienced drivers in here, so you can learn off them and learn your craft in this as well. So I think it's amazing.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Ted. We wish you all the best for the race. We'll catch up during the course of the race. There we go. There's a selection of our drivers that are competing this weekend at Oulton Park for the round 1 of the Fun Cup Endurance Championship. The race will be starting at approximately 2:20 for an epic 4-hour thriller where David Addison and Scott Woodwis will be your commentators, and I'll be down here in the pit lane. But from down here on our first grid walk of the year, it's goodbye from now, and we'll see you in a couple of hours.
So thanks to Jamie Peters-Dennis. We'll hear from Jamie again during the Fun Cup Enduro later on, and with perfect timing, cars leave the assembly area for our second Formula Ford race of the day. Then the second 15-minute race for the BRSCC Super Classic Pre-99 Formula Ford Championship. The first race won, nay dominated, despite a spin on the last lap by Richard Frey, and second went the way of Paul Mason. Jake Shortland third, with a good battle for fourth place being resolved in favour of Chris Stones from Peter Daly. They were trading places throughout the race, and ultimately it was Chris that got back ahead. Peter passed him on the last lap. Chris was ahead when they got to the checkered flag. So it was a lively race, even if it's perhaps not the biggest of Formula Ford grids. The cars have had their countdown in the assembly area, which means that when they get to the grid itself, you'll be straight ready for the start of the race. There's no extra formation lap, so we'll be racing pretty swiftly. Let's have a look at how that grid is going to line up based on the results of race 1. It means that on pole position is going to be Richard Frey, and with him at the front of the grid is Paul Mason. Lining up third, Jake Shortland with the Lola T440. And starting fourth, Chris Stones in the black Van Diemen. Similar car, Peter Daly's car fifth on the grid, ahead of Paul Britton with the PRS. Oliver Buckton with the blue Eldon, he's going to start seventh ahead of Ray Smith. Stuart Jones is ninth on the grid, and Neil Hunt with his traditional Mondial chassis 10th. 11th is Chris Lindley ahead of Lorna Vickers, the British GT safety car driver. Vincent Jay goes from 13th after a spin in race 1. Trevor Morgan next on the grid ahead of Simon or Sid Fraser. Ryman Fine with the Lotus 61, a very venerable car, 16th on the grid. And a question mark over Colin Williams, who didn't do a lap in qualifying, did venture out into race 1, but only did a couple of laps. So hopefully that car is going to be at the back, and hopefully he's going to be a bit healthier than it was earlier on in the day. So there you've got the cars slowly making their way down through Hislops. They will grid up, and then we will be in business for 15 minutes of racing. This championship began a couple of weeks or so, no, probably more than that, 4 weeks or so ago at Silverstone, where the wins went the way of Alex Ames and 2 second places went the way of Richard Tarling. They are absent this weekend, so it leaves the door clear for Richard Frey to come through, who was the runner-up in this championship last season and also was the winner of the Champion of Oulton element. This year, the series having a bit more perhaps of a national feel. As I say, Silverstone they've already been to, but you've got other venues on the calendar to attract further drivers, like a visit to Brands Hatch, Donington, Mallory, and Oulton Park, and then you've got that Champion of Oulton series within a series, really. The class structure is based on the age of the car, so 4 classes, with the more modern cars being in Super Classic A, cars from 1990 to 1998. They've all got to be before 1999, as the name suggests. Class B is for the 82 to 89 cars, Class C 72 to 81, and Class D for cars built before 1972. That's the kind of HSCC, historic Formula Ford era of car. But depending on the nature of the circuit, you might attract drivers into different classes, either for the whole season or just for a one-off. Looking down at the back of the grid, there is 34. That's the car of Colin Williams, then, that's had a pretty mixed day thus far, but fingers crossed it's going to be making some progress in this second race of the day after retiring in race 1. Richard Frey then, pole position, win, spin, fastest lap, got the complete set in race 1, and he's going to take some stopping this time around, I would have thought, as the cars now make their way up onto the grid, with Jake Shortland having been one of the Formula Ford stars thus far, because that Lola T440 is not exactly the youngest of cars on the grid, but it goes very, very effectively in his hands. It dates back to 1977, and the PRS, which is driven by Paul Britton, is 6th on the grid. That's a 1981 car. So, as ever in Formula Ford racing, you don't necessarily need the absolute up-to-date machinery to still be able to be competitive. Green flag shown at the back then, so everybody's where they need to be. The 5-second board will be shown. The lights go red, and our second race of the day for the Super Classic Pre-99 Formula Ford Championship is underway, with a good getaway being made by Richard Frey and a good start also by Chris Stones, who tries to get up on the outside then of Jake Shortland as they go down towards Old Hall Corner for the first time. Look, on the outside line, number 49, the Black Van Diemen of Chris Stones. Peter Daly goes through behind, and now they battle their way down towards Cascades for the first time, with already Richard Frey having checked out. Demon start. He's got Paul Mason running behind him in the Swift, a slightly younger car by a couple of years, and then the 1977 Lola in third place in the hands of Jake Shortland, belying its age as the cars then accelerate their way along Lakeside Straight for the first time. Peter Daly has dropped back, I think, also behind Paul Britton, but as the cars now wriggle their way up towards the right-hander of Shell Oils for the first time, race leader is Richard Frey, and actually being caught a little under braking there. That was Paul Mason being very, very brave on the brakes. Chris Stones runs third, fourth is Shortland, fifth is Daly, in fairness. Paul Britton's next in the queue as the field comes up towards the Britton chicane for the first time. Have a look further back into the queue as well, and you'll see the blue Eldon, Oliver Buxton at the wheel of it, as the cars now bounce their way down towards Hislops. That number 6 is Peter Daly's Van Diemen. Peter used to specialise in Reynards, but Van Diemen's more recently. Now Richard Frey is not getting away this time. Does that mean everybody else has found some pace, or is Richard being very careful, driving within himself here? We didn't see that much of him in race 1, so dominant was he, but he gets a good run out of Knickerbrook Corner, makes the climb up the hill, and that means that margin increases then as the cars now run up towards Druid, and off the road was that Colin Williams from the back of the grid. Certainly one car understeering out wide as they came through Knickerbrook. Big challenge on the inside there. Look, as they get up towards the right of Druids, challenged by Oliver Buxton on the inside. Didn't come to anything, but he's certainly in racy mood as they come down towards the end of the opening lap. And this rather elasticated gap up front, Richard Frey being pegged back a little bit by Paul Mason. Third as they come up towards the end of the lap, Chris Stones. So Peter Daly fifth, trying to find a way past Jake Shortland and keep Paul Britton's PRS at bay as they go over the timing line, then down towards Old Hall. You can see on the outside line there is the BRSCC chairman, Peter Daly. He's done it. He's got past the Lola, so Shortland drops a place. That puts Daly fourth, Shortland fifth. And the race leader, only, by his standards, 0.4 of a second to the good at the end of lap 1. So not really escaping Richard Frey. The pace that he had in race 1, though, suggests that if he does need to turn up the wick, he can do it. Now there, Peter Daly coming under renewed attack. Look, Jake Shortland behind him as they go down towards Island Bend. Peter wants to shake him off and then go after Chris Stones because they had that great battle for class honours earlier on in the day. Break for Shell, turn into the right-hander, back onto the power, drag the cars out the other side. And Jake Shortland being chased by Paul Britton, Lola versus PRS, and that's also for a class lead. So Richard Frey, Paul Mason, Class A. Chris Stones, Peter Daly, the next pair, they're Class B. And then Class C, Jake Shortland and Paul Britton. So the three leading pairs, all with a class lead to argue over as well, and it's class points. There you can see Richard Frey really is under attack now from Paul Mason. This is a completely different type of feel to the race than we had in race 1, where Richard just disappeared up the road. But now being kept honest as the cars come down through Knickerbrook. He was brave here a lap ago and stretched the margin and has done so again, look. But it was at Druids where Paul Mason was able to bring back the lost time. I just wonder whether Richard's playing with him to a degree. So dominant was he earlier on in the day, you can't expect the same performance. Third and fourth though, Class B honours, they're getting themselves together because Chris Stones is under attack again from Peter Daly, as he was for pretty much all of race 1. Daly on the inside, number 6 on the outside line. Chris Stones, number 49. Peter slots back in behind with Jake Shortland in 5th and Paul Britton 6th in the PRS, not too far adrift either. So leaders come through, and the leading 5 almost in a line now because Richard Frey still isn't escaping. The margin just under 0.4 of a second as they go into Old Hall. Touch of understeer as he tries to find some traction out of the corner, which he does. Paul Mason swift though, looking really good in a straight line. And then for third, Stones versus Daly. Through Denton's, down now towards the left-hander of Cascades, loops you onto Lakeside Straight, and Jake Shortland in the Lola is coming back at Peter Daly. Look, the white Lola right on the tail now of the 1988 built Van Diemen, and Peter on the inside of Chris Stone, so it's all happening third, fourth, fifth. Peter thinks better of it, backs out of that. Jake Shortland tries to go around the outsider's island. No, you don't. What about the inside line at Shell, which is the next corner? No way through there either, so turn into the right-hander. And Peter Daly being distracted here in his quest to get himself up past Chris Stones by having to go on the defensive. Busy few days this for Peter. He's off to Sepang on Tuesday because that's the start of GT World Challenge Asia, for which he's also the race director to add to British GT. But at least he can go there, saying in the driver's briefing, I know what it's all about, because he's a racing driver himself. Problems in the background by the look of it for Paul Britton, letting Oliver Buckton go. So the PRS has got a problem, look, because we've had a change, and the white PRS, the 81F, slowing. There it is, going through shot, but Paul Britton, knowing he had a problem, getting out of the way, letting quicker cars go, which is absolutely the right thing to do, but it's a shame that he's got that problem. There are the leaders, with again Paul Mason sort of fainting to the inside at Druids. Richard Frey still very much in command, you get the feeling, and were he to really start to feel the pressure, might be able to turn up the wick. Paul Mason behind him, and then Chris Stones under attack from Peter Daly. Can Peter make a move to the inside? No. Peter's argument here, of course, will be that as the chairman of the club, he's letting the customers have the glory and not wanting to ruin their results, which is as good a cop-out as anybody can offer you. Over the timing line they go once again. Nothing to do with not being quick enough. Through goes Richard Frey then, and the margin he's got is 0.369 of a second over Chris Stones. A bit of a slide from Daly, which brings back onto his tail Jake Shortland. So it's game on for fourth as they drop downhill, and Oliver Buckton in 6th place, remarkably enough, has now done the fastest lap of the race. So the Eldon that he drives, one of the oldest cars in the race, is also the fastest right now, so it's a completely different feel, like I say, compared to what we had earlier on in the day. I wonder whether Richard Frey's car is on a wetter setup and the road is that bit drier all of a sudden. He is leading, and he is edging away a little bit now as they come up towards Shell Oil's corner. Still the Stones Daly battle that was there early on in the day continues. Paul Mason, look, dropping away now from the race leader, and whoops, very, very wide goes Peter Daly all over the grass and loses a place to Jake Shortland. Peter, track limits, got a case to answer now. He's back on the black bit, but he's lost a place in the process there. So down towards Hislops, Chris Stones coming under attack from Jake Shortland. They're closing up a little bit onto the back of Paul Mason. And at this part of the circuit, they always look nearer to the race leader. We're nudging towards halfway. And at this part of the circuit, Richard Frey always seems to be being attacked. Then he stretches the margin going up Clay Hill. And then the like of Mason or Chris Stones always appear that bit nearer when they get to the timing line. Out of Druids again, slightly tighter line in there, employed by Paul Mason. That's the recovering Peter Daly. Then now fending off Oliver Buckton, but he's fallen back as a consequence into 5th place. And not only that, but has lost quite a lot of real estate to Jake Shortland, who's back on his toes, look, trying to get him on the inside line there against Chris Stones, coming down towards Lodge Corner. Over the line once more, and Richard Frey is still no more than half a second to the good. 0.492 of a second now, that margin. Oliver Buckton to the inside line, goes through. That was a brave send. Had a look, couldn't quite do it. Up the inside, just lost a little bit of traction maybe on the inside line. But the Eldon looking for a way past the Van Diemen. Jake Shortland in the meantime, there you can see the second of these two drivers has done the fastest lap of the race now in that Lola. dating back to 1977. Now he makes the move against Chris Stones, gets a toe coming out of Cascades along Lakeside Straight, lines up for the inside line. But Chris Stones, who has done many a lap around here, knows exactly where to put the car and hangs on ahead as they come up towards Shell Oils. As Shortland closes on Stones, he in turn is closing on Mason. But that little battle might just start to relieve Richard Frey of the pressure as they bounce over the curb once again, out of the chicane at Britain's. And you can see the margin has stretched just a touch between first and second once more. Down they come towards Hislops. This now approaching the last third of the race is exactly what Richard Frey needed, but second, third and fourth are together, and fifth and sixth are together as well. So Jake Shortland on the back of Chris Stones, who's getting a little bit nearer to Paul Mason there in the Swift, the distinctive, rather more bulbous front to the Swift chassis from 1994, by which stage Formula Ford Racing had split itself into the 1800cc Zetec and the 1600 Kent eras, and Swift was still building cars converted to Zetec shapes for Kent customers. Out of the right of Druids then comes the third placed pair, and Jake Shortland lines up for a go on the inside, but then thinks better of it. To do the overtaking, you've still got to go offline where it's still quite greasy, so he decides discretion is the better part of valour. 5 minutes to go. Richard Frey escaping now as they go through over the timing line, and yes, finally he's cracked the magic second. 11 tenths to the good then as they go through. In second place, Paul Mason, which was ever thus, and then for third and fourth, Chris Stones ahead of Jake Shortland, Peter Daly fifth, sixth Oliver Buckton, and Paul Britton is still circulating in seventh place despite waving traffic through earlier on. So whatever problem he felt he had, he's persevering with it, and the car certainly has some pace, even if not outright pace. Jake Shortland, despite that big wobble at Cascades, is still on the money and makes a look now along Lakeside Straight to try to close back up onto the tail of Chris Stones, who in turn is trying to close back up onto the tail of Paul Mason. Last time through, though, Richard Frey, fastest lap of the race, almost suggesting playtime's over. I'm off now, chaps. I gave you a chance. We had a bit of a fight early on. Now I'm off to have another win. He's stretching the margin, but third place is very definitely up for grabs. Chris Stones, we saw in the first race against Peter Daly, knows how to really race, whether it's attack, whether it's defend. Now he's got to do a lot of defending against Jake Shortland as they come up over Hilltop. Find a wet patch just to take some of the heat out of the tyres for a moment, and then down towards Hislops, into the right, then the left, and then into Knickerbrook Corner. Still some tyre squeal as the drivers hustle right and left, and then right again, flick up the hill. So Frey with just over 3.5 minutes to go, still being pursued vigorously by Paul Mason. A gap back to third place where Chris Stones is hanging on to the place, although Peter Daly is coming back at the pair of them. So Stones versus Shortland there for third, Daly fifth. Tighter line at Druids, Jake Shortland looking quick, and again he gets out of the draft, has a look coming down towards Lodge Corner. This time, no, doesn't quite commit. I thought he was going to have a proper go, but realising that by the time he just about get level, it will be time to brake and turn in, and that's not going to happen. The leaders are into traffic now as well. Raimund Fenn's Lotus goes a lap down. Now Peter Daly does the fastest lap of the race. Don't get to say that very often. Peter Daly does the fastest lap of the race. Through on the inside line goes Jake Shortland to finally get third away from Chris Stones, and Daly is caught back up as well. Don't get to say that too often. So out of Denton's they go. Traffic ahead. So Jake Shortland up into the top three, and Chris Stones fourth, Peter Daly fifth. It's been a good catch-up operation, this, in fairness, after his grassy moment, so maybe benefiting from the squabbles going on ahead. And now Daly goes to the inside line, heading up towards Island Bend. They're all concertinaing as well as they get to the left-hander there. Jake Shortland, for the moment at least, stays ahead. Chris Stones in fourth place, Peter Daly fifth, and there's going to be time for one more lap at the end of this. The best lap of the race now, a 1:53, courtesy of Peter Daly. So there's going to be time for one more when they come across the line. And therefore third, fourth, fifth still up for grabs. Jake Shortland then ahead of Chris Stones, ahead of Peter Daly, and Oliver Buckton in the remarkable Eldon is right there with them as well. So third, fourth, fifth, sixth, all in a line down towards Hislops. Jake Shortland, having taken that third place, has done a really commendable job, and as they come out of Hislops towards Knickerbrook, the clock ticks for one final lap of the race. Richard Frey in the meantime escaping. He's got Paul Mason behind him, margin just over a second, and that is Colin Williams still struggling on. crawling up towards Druids. The leaders are going to negotiate him as there a big dive look from Oliver Buxton on the inside line, and the Eldon can't quite dislodge Peter Daly, but not for the one of trying. Blue light on to say to Colin Williams, much quicker cars coming past, get out of the way, which he duly does. Good chap, doesn't get in the way of the leaders. That car, I fear, is heading back towards the pit lane, as up towards the start of his last lap, still on for the double, is Richard Frey, but he can't afford a last lap spin in this race because that would completely lose him the race lead. Look how much closer Paul Mason has got, and Frey there goes a little bit wide towards Old Hall, but then flicks the car in, catches it on the throttle, powers out the other side. Shortland third, Stones fourth, Daly fifth, and in sixth place Oliver Buxton. But Richard Frey is either making more of a race of it this time around, or genuinely looks like the car isn't as well set up for these drier conditions as it was for the damp circuit this morning, because it's been a tougher race all round for him. He still leads, he's still on target for the win, but unless he can pull something out of the bag in the last lap, the fastest lap will not be his. Up towards Shell Oil's corner they go. So the checkered flag this time, and it remains Frey from Mason, and then gap back to Jake Shortland in third place. Chris Stone still fourth, from Peter Daly fifth, from Oliver Buxton in sixth, as they now squirm their way out of Britain's. And Buxton looks the man most likely to do anything, doesn't he, with the sinister dark visor on the dark crash helmet sticking out of the top of the Eldon, the blue Eldon coming now down towards Hislops. Peter Daly not quite close enough to attack Chris Stones, but he's also got to think about trying to defend here, look, as they come now through the corner into Hislops once again, and now the run up the hill heading towards the right-hander of Druids. It does look, though, as though it is going to be a race win, the second of the day for Richard Frey. Comes up towards the exit of Druids. He's got enough in hand now over Paul Mason. In the background, Jake Shortland has really made good his escape from Chris Stones, so it's going to be a class-winning third for Jake and a class-winning fourth for Chris Stones. The checkered flag is at the ready, and it's going to be 2 from 2 in the BRSCC Super Classic Pre-99 Formula 4 Championship for Richard Frey. He wins race 2 from Paul Mason, a second of the day, and Jake Shortland coming through for third. Fourth, just going the way of Chris Stones, Peter Daly taking fifth, and as he needed to, Richard Frey does pull something out of the bag on the last lap and get the fastest lap of the race, so he's got the set. 2 poles, 2 wins, and 2 fastest laps. Oliver Buxton taking 6th ahead of Paul Britton in 7th. Vincent J should be through for 8th. There he is. He had a spin in race 1 but survives in race 2. 9th place will go the way of Stuart Jones, who's a bit lonely this time. And then the top 10 is going to be rounded out by Ray Smith in the Vincenzo Sospiri Festival winning car. And if it's the same chassis that Vincenzo used all year, and I've no reason to think it won't be, it will therefore be the car with which Vincenzo Sospiri had his first car race win here at Oulton Park in the Good Friday meeting of 1988. Vincenzo pulled off this great move around the outside in wet conditions to take the lead of the Formula Ford Championship race and take his first win, and it was quite a move. The car in the bright blue, John Village ran it in period, and it was successful all the way through the season. So we'll hear from our winning drivers in a few moments' time, but Richard Frey takes the race win from Paul Mason, and the gap in the end 1.7 seconds, which does give rise to thinking that Richard was teasing just a little. Jake Shortland third, he wins Class C. Chris Stones fourth, and he wins Class B ahead of Peter Daly, with Class D going the way of Oliver Buxton sixth. Paul Britton seventh ahead of Vincent J, Stuart Jones and Ray Smith rounding out the top 10. 11th to Lorna Vickers ahead of Neil Hunt. Chris Lindley next from Simon Sid Fraser. Ryman Fenn was a lap down. Colin Williams struggling with his Van Diemen, and Trevor Morgan's Reynard 88 FF a casualty into the pit lane. So well done Richard Frey, perfect day that. As I say, 2 poles, 2 wins, 2 fastest laps, the second of which you got on the last lap of that second race, and that helps him also in terms of garnering more points within the championship. BMWs will take centre stage next, because the Nankang Tower BMW Compact Cup will be our next activity. But before that, we'll have a chance to hear from the winning drivers from Formula Ford. had a slightly familiar look to it as well after what we had being mirrored from race 1 into race 2. But the drivers for that, as I say, we will hear from in a few moments' time. Perfect way, though, for Richard Frey to continue his season, and, if you like, start his season if you take the Champion of Oulton element of this in isolation coming through on top. So drivers come into the Parc Fermé area, and we'll have a chance to hear from the top 3 before we turn our attention then back to the BMWs that were lively early on in the day. So the Super Classic pre-99 Formula Ford Championship action done. The series backed by Jeff Page Engineering for the season. Marshall's moving from one post to another, a different vantage point for the next race, just to ring the changes. And as soon as we've got winning drivers out of cars, Scott will be poised to have a word with Richard Frey after perfect day. Another race, another victory, and points for both the Super Classic and the subsidiary Champion of Oulton series going his way. So the road's starting to dry pretty quickly now. In the background you can hear just how blustery it is on the cameras, but the wet road drying at a decent enough pace. Offline it's still a bit greasy, and drivers, if they get onto the grass, are going to find out how wet it is, but at least the racing line isn't too bad. And let's hear the thoughts of Richard Frey about all of this as a double race winner today. He's with Scott Woodward.
Well, I think you'll agree that was a typical Formula Ford race. Close, tight, exciting, but in the end, it's still the same top 3, but it doesn't tell the whole story, of course. Let's bring Richard Frey in, of course, who does the double here this afternoon. Well done.
Thank you.
So, a bit closer competition this time. David suspects you might have had maybe more of a wet setup on the compared to on the day. Just what was it you think that kept these guys a bit closer?
I was taking it a bit careful, really. I recognised I was at the front of the grid. I could see where the damp was when we were going out. I just wanted to protect my position more than anything else, and so I was taking it a bit easy, trying to sort of feel where the grip was. And as the track was drying out, so I sort of got a bit more into my comfort zone.
It was a good fight out of the course. Paul kept you very honest up the front, as he promised to try and do. So it was good, typical Formula Ford action. Yeah,
100%. I mean, you know, Paul's a really experienced racer, to be fair, and absolutely, he was in my mirrors for about 3/4, if not 90% of that race, to be honest with you. So I sort of had the black Formula Ford sat behind me, the changing track in front of me, conscious that I didn't want to mess it up, but I still wanted to win. Yeah. But yeah, it was a good effort, and definitely I think the setup changes that the team made help, to be honest with you, early doors.
Yeah, and of course now, that's 2 class wins for you, 2 overall wins on top of that as well. Next up, Mallory Park, so should be quite intriguing around that little Leicestershire Speed Bowl.
Massively so. I love Mallory Park. I just love the whole atmosphere. I love the way kind of the crew sort of get together, and last time I was there the sun was out, the tunes were on, so really enjoyed it. Thank you.
That's quickly getting you a trophy from Championship coordinator Alan Bowles. Well done, Alan. And well done, Richard, and Alan presents that one, so congratulations, 2 from 2. We'll see you for next time. Let's quickly rattle through second and third, because the BMWs are going out onto the track, so quickly second for Paul Mason. Well, you said you're going to keep more honest, and you did that in race 2.
Yeah, I managed to keep him a bit more honest. I think he was a bit cautious in the first couple of laps with the damp patches, but I could use him to judge. And then a few laps from the end I got a bit closer, and then I went a bit wide at Cascades and lost some momentum down the straight, and so then he'd got it then from a couple of laps from the end.
Excellent. Did you enjoy today?
Yeah, very good. Be back at Mallory next time out.
Excellent, good stuff. Let's get you a trophy from Alan then, Championship coordinator. Second place, of course, the specially made trophies courtesy of Jeff Page Engineering, the Championship sponsors. Well done to Paul. Well done today. We'll see you next time at that one. And let's have a chat to Jake Shortland in third place in this Lola. And again, that was just as fun as race 1, if not a bit more, because you had a bit more competition there.
Had a bit more competition, yeah. Not probably what I wanted, but it just took me a while to get into the groove of it. And by the time I got past him, it was last lap, so that's just how it is. But I had a good race with him, and yeah, it's nice to finish third again. So.
Yeah, look fun out there.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it was good. It was nice, close racing, and it's just what you want. So it's it was enjoyable. That was
excellent. Well done for third place. We'll get you trophies off from Alan, of course, from again courtesy of Jeff Page Engineering, who are the Championship sponsors this year. So well done to Jake, and gets his third place trophy from Alan, and well done to our Super Classics, and well done to Alan, of course. Great day's racing for him as well. Right, that's the 4 and 4 done for today. Quick your hand back to David now for our next race of the programme, which is the second race of the day for the Nankang Tyre BMW Compact Cup.
Scott, thanks. We've got the cars already midway around their outlap for this second BMW race of the day. It was a lively one earlier on, and the grid based on the results of that first race, which means that pole position goes the way of Joe Doble. Conor Grady with him at the front of the grid. The second row, Ross Stoner and Gareth Clayton, and the third row, Mike Doble and Richard Sutherland. Row 4, Peter Smith and Alex Reid ahead of Max Noble and Rod Langham. Sixth row, Gordon McMillan, who had a penalty in race 1 for track limits. Mark Grady on his outside ahead of Adam Wright and Xavier Ross. Row 8, Alistair Smith and Barney Lower. The 9th row, Thorben Aston, one to watch this time. He had a 10-second delayed start for race 1 after being excluded from qualifying. Daniel Mountford's on his outside. 10th row, Alex Corkman and Tim Seaford. Matt Flowers, another man to watch because he was, after a bit of hip and shoulder, tipped off the road in race 1. Got stuck in the grass and wasn't able to rejoin. The car had a bit of frontal damage. Assuming it is okay and is on the grid, then that should make some progress then, because Matt, we know, he's a quick driver. He finished third in the championship last year behind Gordon McMillan and Gareth Clayton, who was the champion. So the grid forming, and then we'll be straight into the race. It's going to be 15 minutes, usual format, time not laps. So flag goes out first time the leader crosses the line after 15 minutes are done, and we hope it's the full 15 minutes this time, because it was a red flag earlier. Matt Flowers' car, again, poor bloke, it wasn't his fault at all. He got tipped off the road and then stuck on the mud, and the car was in a dangerous place, so the race had to be stopped. And if you're not running at the time of the stoppage, you don't feature in the result, so therefore he's at the back of the grid rather than taking a place from where he would have been on the road. But is the car there? I think it is. Yes, that's Matt Flowers at the back in the white, blue and yellow swirly colours, and he's got somebody's front valance, if not his own, attached to the car now. So he'll be one to watch, making some progress up through the grid. The Compact Cup, not to be confused with the Contact Cup, which was a championship of many years past, is about to get underway then. Lively racing in race 1. Expect more of the same as the lights change. And Mike Doble from the third row gets a decent enough start. Ross Stoner's orange car tries to squeeze between Conor Grady's white car on the outside and the poleman Joe Doble on the inside. And then a big send by Gareth Clayton, number 1, the reigning champion, up the inside line to go third. They all go into Old Hall. Do they all come out the other side? Yes, they do, but it could well be Conor Grady's white car in the lead of the race. Drops back, though. He's on the inside. He has another think about it. Can't do it. So it is going to be Doble that leads. Second is Grady. Third, it is Gareth Clayton. Ross Stoner is fourth. He was saying, Ross Stoner, after race 1, that he definitely didn't want it wet, and if it was going to do pretty badly because he's lost his bottle and hates the wet. Well, a dry road might give him an opportunity as Gareth Clayton goes second there. Look on the inside line. He had a really pox qualifying, but he's rebuilt the day as they come up now towards Shell Oils. Stoner in the orange car to the outside line there, tries to go all the way around the outside of Conor Grady to no avail. Mike Doble is next, running a little bit wide there, putting a wheel onto the dirt as they bounce their way out of Shell was Max Noble. And another big lock-up. Conor Grady kind of drives this like he would a Ginetta Junior. Flicks the car through the chicane. More tar smoke. Who was that abusing? Oh, that was Gordon McMillan, Rudy McMillan getting through. He had a penalty in race 1, but he had good pace off the line then and in this race too. Somebody's knocked on the wipers as they drop over Hilltop down towards the Hislop's chicane. More tar squeal as they scrabble their way through and now make the run up through Knickerbrook Corner towards the Water Tower and then on towards Druids. The race leader, Joe Doble, then, having asserted himself a little bit more over the course of this opening lap, trying to build the gap over the opposition as they come up towards Druids, and he's doing so. In second place, though, is the reigning champion. So Gareth Clayton now becoming more and more of a driver to watch, because we know how good he is after his championship successes last year. Let's see what he can do now about hunting down the race leader. And he started the first race quite a long way back on the grid, something like 9th. So, as I say, he's rebuilt the day into the braking zone. Further back there, another look at the inside. Big dive by Alex Reid to go through, and he gains a place as they turn out of Lodge Corner up towards the line. Then comes the leader. It is Joseph Doble ahead. A little bit of a gap back now to Gareth Clayton in second place. Conor Grady third, Ross Stoner fourth, leading the Masters class, ahead of Mike Doble, and Alex Reid sixth, ahead of their Max Noble, and also behind Gordon McMillan. So lots of shuffling going on as the cars come over the line. And still they battle lower down the order, heading in towards Old Hall Corner. So good racing this. The Compact Cup delivering good action. And there, look, Gordon McMillan, number 20, on the inside of Max Noble, tries to go through. This is all happening for 7th place on the run along Lakeside Straight. And McMillan, number 20, in that grey and yellow car on the inside line, ought to be able to make that move stick, I would have thought, by the time they get to the end of the straight. And he does, and he goes by. So, with a big slide further back there from Richard Sutherland's all-black car with the blue wheels, that puts him on the wrong line, and it opens up the door possibly for Peter Smith to have a go. Peter couldn't do it, comes off the corner. What progress of Matt Flowers, though, because after being at the back of the grid, he's trying to make his way through the pack, and I'm not sure he even came through at the end of the opening lap. So is there a car stranded anywhere? Is there a yellow flag anywhere? Didn't seem to be on the timing page at the end of the opening lap. So the leaders come over Hilltop. Tyre squeal as they get towards Hislops. Oh, Matt Flowers is there, but I don't think his transponder is working. That's the problem. So we can't necessarily work instantly out his race position. We'll do it from the eye in a second as the cars climb the hill. Matt Flowers goes through shot, so he is in the race, but he's got work to do, and his progress is going unnoticed with the transponder not picking up. So out of Druids they come, with Gordon McMillan on the back look of Alex Reid. So that battle continues now for 6th and 7th places. The leading line, Joe Doble trying to make good his escape, and as they drop down towards Lodge Corner, he's still being kept on his toes. Alex Reid has got McMillan behind him. Then you've got Max Noble next up as they come through Lodge. Joe Doble leads the way then. In 2nd spot, Gareth Claydon, and for 3rd, Conor Grady. Rostoner is 4th, leading the Masters class from Mike Doble. Bit of a gap back to almost everybody else. That second wave of cars, Reid, McMillan, Noble, Sutherland, Smith to 10th, all in a line. And I reckon 13th is where Matt Flowers is in number 3, because he's gone by on the tail of Rod Langham, even if the transponder doesn't tell us that. Battle on here, look, coming down towards Cascades. At the head of it is Alex Reid in the blue car, but it's Gordon McMillan right on his tail. And then next in the queue, Max Noble as the field rounds along Lakeside Straight. Richard Sutherland in the black and blue, it's like a bruise almost, that coloured car, 9th place. Peter Smith 10th. So McMillan to not quite the outside line, coming towards Island Bend. He wants the inside for Shell, but there's no real opportunity, I don't think, to go launching up the inside there, unless Alex Reid makes a mistake and goes deep into the corner. He does go deep, but then V's off the exit, if you like. So he cuts back across Gordon McMillan and hangs on to position. Reid 6th, McMillan 7th, Max Noble in 8th, 9th place Sutherland, 10th is Peter Smith, way up onto 2 wheels as they wallop the high curb coming towards Britons. We've done the first third of the race then, just over 9 more minutes on the clock, and Peter Smith there, number 31, lines up to have a go on the outside of Richard Sutherland as they come down towards Hislops. Gordon McMillan getting all feisty as well, trying to force a mistake out of Alex Reid as they go right and left and then right again, up now towards Knickerbrook. Max Noble, 8th, waiting for it to end in tears ahead of him possibly, and then he can make a move. They climb the hill, heading now up towards Druids, and McMillan is on the move because heading up towards the water tower, he was just jinking out from behind Alex Reid's car. So for 6th place, is there a change? Not quite. Reid is still ahead of McMillan, and then right behind them is Max Noble as they come out of Druids. McMillan to the inside, runs out of real estate, has to cut across the road. As he does so, he defends from Max Noble. McMillan on the outside line, look as they dive down towards Lodge Corner, still no way through. Out of the right, up Deer Leap, nose to tail. McMillan looking quicker than Reid. He was 3rd on the road in the earlier race. Now he's got to run, but it's the outside line down towards Old Hall Corner. Gordon McMillan puts his nose in front. He's got the place, but whether he can hold it going into Old Hall remains to be seen, because Alex Reid comes back at him. A big lock up from McMillan, who now tries to get the undercut coming out of the corner. Up the curb goes Reid. He still defends. Max Noble buys into this as well. And so now as they drop down towards Cascades, to the outside line goes McMillan. On the inside line is Alex Reid. Great racing. McMillan is still alongside. He's still on the outside. And he still hasn't quite done it. It's like a rolling start. They run along Lakeside Straight. Alex Reid in the blue car on the inside line will have the shorter, tighter, quicker line going into Island. And he goes through, but he's sideways, and McMillan gets a little bit lent on. McMillan's all over the grass. Noble's got ahead of him. Smith's got ahead of him. Sutherland's got ahead of him. And McMillan is back on the road. He didn't bog down in quite the way that Matt Flowers did, but he's cost himself a whole load of places, and Alex Reid has still got this great gaggle of cars queued up behind him. 2nd place, Gareth Claydon just ahead of Conor Grady. The leader is escaping. If Joe Doble is in for the whole year, he's going to take some stopping on the evidence of today. And Gareth Claydon realising that this is going to be a tough season again. Third place is